Well, welcome back to another episode of InHaus Podcast. Today with me, I'm so happy to announce my guest, Johnathan Ogden. Johnathan Ogden is a musician, graphic designer, producer, and he's from Manchester, UK. And then also, he's part of a ministry called Set Sail as a creative missionary. And Jonathan, before we even jump in, man, thanks for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
And before we jump in, would you touch on Set Sail? What is that? I was looking into it and it seems awesome, man. And so
Yeah.
just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Set Sail is basically a ministry that we run that's aimed at both making our own art, that's pointing people to Jesus, and also trying to train and equip and inspire other artists and creators in the church. So it's just a way for us to kind of not build our own name as artists and that kind of thing, but to actually reach out to other people and teach and train and try and just encourage what's happening in the world, because it feels way bigger than just us right now. So
Oh yeah. When did you start that again? What year was that?
about 2015 we started it.
Nice.
So,
Nice,
yeah, been
man.
coming up to 6 years now.
Cool. And then for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about who you are. I know you don't play for the Baltimore Ravens.
That's my past life.
But yeah, man,
Yeah.
who are you? You know,
Yeah,
it's a
so
loaded question.
I live in Manchester in the UK, and basically I'm a full-time musician. So I kind of go between music and design. I used to be a full-time graphic designer, and then about the same time that we started Set Sail, so about 2015, I went full-time with music, and I kind of see myself as like a creative missionary.
Yeah.
So I just love to like use music and all the arts, design, video, all of that, just as a way of telling people about Jesus. So.
What was because you started as a graphic designer. What was
Yeah.
kind of the call on your life? Like, what was like? Okay, I don't really like. I still want to do this, but I want to go full force into music. What was kind of that transition? What did that look like?
Yeah, it was a fun one because music was never something I thought I would do full time. I never kind of had that aim to be doing full time music, but
Yeah.
it was something that I started almost out of curiosity. Like I was a worship leader at my church back home, and very small family church, and just kind of I would lead worship on piano, maybe with one or two in the band, and
Yeah.
I was starting to write songs at home and just enjoyed the process of music production and really liked electronic music. So I just kind of had this curiosity to be like, okay, I'm going to try write worship songs with a slightly different sound, and I don't know if it'll reach anyone, but I'll put it out on Facebook and SoundCloud, and yeah, it really seemed to find an audience of people who were looking for something different, and
Yeah.
seemed to grow really quick. And so I was literally working full time as a graphic designer, and it just started to get to the point where I was taking all of my time off to go and do tours with the band, and then I basically just didn't really get a break for quite a while, and so it came to
Yeah.
that kind of decision point where I was like, okay, design or music, which one am I going to do? So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you made the right choice, man. I mean, are you still doing graphic design stuff like on the side at all, or is that
a
kind
little
of?
bit. I do the occasional freelance thing, and obviously like the design part of my own music, so like the album art and merch and all that stuff. So
Oh yeah.
still get to use the design part.
Oh, good, good. Because I know you were part of. Was you were releasing music under? What was that? The name? It was robots,
Rivers and Robots.
Rivers and Robots. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
blanked
yeah,
there
that started as kind of was initially the name of my solo project, and then it
Right.
became a band. And then I started making music again solo under my own name. So yeah, at this point I'm kind of more doing the solo stuff these days.
Okay. Are you guys still doing like? Because how did you? Were you like, hey, I have the? Were they your friends before you started doing stuff? And you were like,
Yeah, well, I met them through work. So
okay.
at the place I was a designer, it was like a Christian missions organization. So I met a bunch of guys just like over lunch break, and realized we have similar music tastes. And yeah, it started as a way to kind of translate these songs I had from home into how we play them with the band and play live. Yeah, it's been through a few lineup changes. We've had a different drummer and guitarist come in, and just this past year, I mean, it's been growing like really way beyond what I thought it would be. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, just this past year, I felt like it was time to kind of take a pause on that as a project and go more into doing solo stuff again, and leaning more into kind of the production side of things. I've been
Yeah.
having a lot more opportunities for producing and songwriting, even with other artists, like writing songs for them that doesn't go out under my name, and just been finding a
Okay.
lot of joy in that kind of creative outlet.
Is
So
that something that excites you, or you're like, man, I get to
yeah,
be a part of this, and it's like, because you're growing, man. I feel like, has that been like a big thing this year for you? Is just kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, like trusting the process, trusting the Lord, and being like,
mm,
okay, because is not to touch on it too much, but is COVID pretty bad down there right now? Is it?
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So
um, yeah, I feel like a lot of it's been unexpected. I mean, even the band becoming what it was like, I never thought it would become that, and to even do music full time is a surprise. And I think I learned through doing the band that, we were very DIY, we were very like indie band.
yeah,
We got to try out pretty much running everything ourselves and learning how to tour and play live and studio recordings and all of that process. And I think through it all, I learned that the part that most makes me come alive is like the actual writing of the songs and the
yeah,
creative process of like, I'm just a geek, so I like
yeah,
being behind my computer and just like making
yeah.
the thing. And so I guess with my solo stuff, I don't really play it live a lot. It's a lot more of a recording project, and yeah, with the producing and songwriting with others as well, it's kind of my happy space of just sitting at home and creating.
Oh
And
yeah.
especially
I'd
with COVID, it's like that's
yeah.
all we can really do at the moment.
Yeah, that's like for me. It was when COVID was really bad um, over here. That was my thing during lockdown. Was like
hmm
I'm gonna go in my basement. I'm gonna sit, grab my guitar,
Yeah.
sing to the Lord, and like I didn't go into it with the mindset of like, all right, I'm gonna start writing songs.
Mm.
It was kind of the idea of like, if something happens, something happens, and then
Yeah.
you know. But
Yeah. I think
how
that's the
did
best
that
way.
process? What was that?
I think that's the best way. I kind
Oh
of
yeah,
felt a similar thing as soon as
it's
like
organic.
yeah, once COVID hit, I was just like, the verse that came to my mind actually was the one in Matthew 6, where it's like, when you pray, go into your room and close your door, and about the Father who sees in secret. And I was like, this feels like a real time to go away and like be in secret for a while and just,
Oh yeah,
like you say, like just sit with a guitar and just worship, and no agenda to like write something, but just to be in that space.
just to
And
play. I
yeah,
feel like
I
those
mean,
are the best moments, man. Because I lead
yeah.
worship here in my church too, and like I love Sunday morning. I love leading with the band and the team. But like I feel like when you're just with the Lord one on one, like
Mm,
man, it's so good.
yeah, it's the best.
How did that start for you? The passion for music and for creating.
Yeah. So I come from a big family, so I'm the youngest of 7 kids.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, so a lot of my older brothers and sisters, like, well, the whole family's quite musical. Pretty much everyone plays a different instrument, and one of my like middle brothers was a worship leader at our church, and so I kind of grew up always seeing him leading worship. And
Nice.
I also had a brother who was like a DJ, so he kind of like influenced the electronic elements of my music, I suppose. And yeah, there was always a lot of music around the house, and that was a very like big part of my childhood, especially being in Manchester. It's a big music city in the UK as well, so
Nice.
just getting to see a lot of bands here. And I think really for me, I grew up in church. I was a church kid, and it wasn't till I was around maybe 16 that I really felt it was time to like take my faith seriously, and I started like really committing to follow Jesus. And I remember asking the whole time, like, what is it? I heard that verse about we're all different parts of one body, and
Yeah.
I was asking like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? What's my area? Like, where do I fit? And it was kind of like a surprise to me when the Lord kind of highlighted music as something to do. And even though I was already doing it in a sense, I was already playing in like the church band.
Right.
I just never saw it as like, oh wait, this is actually something I can do in a way that glorifies God. And yeah, that kind of changed my mindset on it all, really.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Because I have like a similar, I guess, in a way, I grew up, my family's not musical, but
Mhm.
I from the age of 2, my parents say that I would just gravitate towards like listening to music and playing music. And then my
Yeah,
dad started a church in 6th grade. And then
nice.
I started leading worship for him when I was like 10. So I didn't really know
That's
what
awesome.
I didn't know what I was doing. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, kind of around 16 is when I was like, okay, like let's follow the Lord, like, and
Mm.
make it our own. I feel like growing up in the church, it's easy to be like, well, this faith is my parents, and so it's
Yeah.
mine too, you
Yeah.
know. But
No,
kind
definitely.
of building that relationship, um, I feel like that's super important.
Yeah, 100%.
And so in 2000. 2010, right, is when you came out with your first recording, the
Yeah.
first project,
Yes.
and that was just songs from your bedroom, right? Like you were just
Yeah.
s-
It's pretty much been songs from my bedroom the whole way through almost.
oh
It's
yeah,
been like, but that one especially, like the first album, yeah, I probably started it in 2010. And at the time I was like in my brother's room. I had one of those like bunk beds that has like the desk underneath the bed. So I literally made the album like underneath my bed.
dude.
I was like
Was
18.
it all
So.
like, or like, was it just like a guitar, and then what'd you use for like production and stuff like
I
that?
had one of those like Yamaha DJ keyboards that has like all the like really bad loops on it and stuff. And I managed to figure out a way to like plug in a MIDI cable to get to my
Oh
laptop.
yeah,
So I literally had that plugged into my laptop and then like a USB Yeti microphone. And I just did everything on that. So like pretty much every instrument on those first two albums are like MIDI sounds that I just found in Ableton and
dude.
playing all the drums on my little Yamaha keyboard and everything. So,
Was that like, was that your first like big like producing and like doing that, or?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, I'd done when I was a teenager. I was really into doing remixes. I did a lot of like I downloaded Fruity Loops and used to like remix
Oh,
all
yeah.
this electronic stuff. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, when I started writing songs and coming up with the Rivers and Robots project, I was like, well, let's just try and produce it myself with what I know how to do. And I just had no expectation that it was going to be like a thing. So it was a very DIY, like fun project. I was just
Oh,
doing
yeah.
it weekends and evenings. And yeah, I think the albums after that we did, like I would still demo them that way, but then we'd go
Right.
into studios and record them. But yeah, the more I've enjoyed the production process, like coming back to my solo stuff, I do that all in my room again. It's kind of come full circle.
Yeah.
Still just me with a laptop and a keyboard, but
Yeah, because I
got a bit
saw
more
this
practice.
morning actually, just like a video, the video that you put on YouTube talking about your new song, "All Right."
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like, dude, like I feel like I couldn't do anything like that. I'm really bad with the production side of things,
mm-hmm.
but it's really cool to see like you're letting people into your process. And
Yeah,
one thing that I love about your music is that you cover a lot of bases, right? Like you've done all the acoustic stuff, and then you've also had um, albums and projects like 24 Hours.
mm-hmm.
And so where have you found like where do you find your creative inspiration? What kind of like, okay, well I want to go down this avenue, or I want to go down this avenue, and then where do
Yeah.
you find the inspiration to write about?
Yeah, good question. I think I've always really enjoyed artists that do experiment and like mix things up a lot. There's an artist called Toro Imwa that's like just a mainstream producer guy. I feel almost like he's been an inspiration along the way because he's a designer and musician as well. But
Yeah.
he's been one of those that like every album he puts out is kind of a different genre, and you're kind of always waiting for like what's the next thing going to be. And even artists like Sufjan Stevens and stuff as well. I feel like
Oh yeah.
it's
So
kind of
good.
similar. It's like who knows what his next album's going to be.
Right.
Um, but I think early on I had a lot of preconceived ideas of what I thought people would want to hear, and like even though the first two albums I didn't think anyone would listen to them, I think when people did start listening to it, I was like, oh, okay, people must like this style, so I have to keep making this. And
Yeah.
I very quickly realized that it was actually the songs that I felt most excited about, but I was normally nervous that like this feels a bit too far, maybe this isn't what people are going to connect with, ended up being the ones that people most connected with.
Yeah.
And I think people just look for authenticity, and so I think if you're genuinely creating from an authentic place of just things that you want to do and try, people are willing to follow the journey. So I feel like gradually over time I've just felt more free to like try out ideas. And yeah, I feel like maybe 5 or 6 years ago I don't know if I'd have been brave enough to make like a whole beat tape that's like fully electronic, but at this point I'm just like, well, I want to try it. I
'Cause-
think people will dig it.
Yeah. Was that something that you like you had to find your sound a little bit, or was that
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, in some ways it was that full circle thing again, because that
Right.
it's almost, I mean, better production, but it's almost like the remixes I used to make when I was a teenager of like very electronic music. And a lot of the time I was making those tracks, it kind of felt like kind of 16, 17-year-old me when I was like learning about electronic music. So yeah, and a lot of those beats, they started as just things I was making to go in videos, and like songs that I was making in the background. And it was only through kind of putting them on videos and people asking, "What's that song? Are you going to release that one?" I was like, "Oh, I never thought of releasing that as a Johnathan
Yeah.
Ogden thing." But then it kind of set me off on the whole path of the beat tape, and I just really enjoyed working on that concept. It was just a lot of fun.
Was it a lot of promoting your music then, or was it just kind of like people would stumble on it, or what did you make like a point like, hey, I'm gonna promote this? Or
I
was it?
think I've never really enjoyed promoting. I think
Yeah.
probably most artists feel the same.
Yeah, I get that.
But I think the good thing about what I do and what a lot of other artists in our kind of sphere are doing is like it's such a niche for like worship music that sounds different, and
Oh yeah.
I don't know. There's all kinds of people call it the indie worship or whatever, whatever kind of label you want to put on it. But I feel like there's really just a listener base and an audience that are like hungry for different types of music, and once you find one artist, then you find another one, and like everyone's kind of connected. It's like
Yeah.
not a huge world, and so I think really it's been primarily like word of mouth and just people that have been hungry to find this new music that's out there, and go digging through YouTube and Spotify and find these artists, and then it's just those guys have like carried it for I think everyone that's kind of doing this type of music. It's been people that are really engaged with what we're making and talking about it and sharing it and putting it on social media and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's felt very organic. I've never like been running big advertising campaigns or anything like that. It's kind of just been YouTube and Instagram and just putting it out there, and people are connecting with it. So
That's
been,
awesome.
been
And
good.
then as you've been creating, has there been any like people within the church, like worship leaders, that have kind of inspired you at all, or has it been like I'm kind of separate from that type of
Yeah.
genre, if you would say?
No, I've always really enjoyed like I love mainstream worship music as well. Like I don't see it as kind of like a revolt against that.
Right,
Some
right,
people
right.
say it's like you're trying to do the new worship thing. I'm like, well, like when I'm at home, I listen to Hillsong and Matt Redman, like
Oh yeah.
all just the classic stuff, and they're the songs I lead in church, and absolutely love that kind of stuff. So I think Delirious were definitely a big inspiration for me. Like being in the UK as well, like
Yeah.
they kind of modeled, I think, that idea that you can have a really congregational worship song and like a rock song or like all these different sounds on the same album, and it can all be worship. And I think Matt Redman as well is another worship leader that just
Oh yeah.
he writes so many songs from the Bible. I remember like when I was a teenager, the first time I read the Bible for myself, I was like noticing all the songs that I used to sing in church and being like, oh, it's from the Bible, okay. And I feel like Matt Redman was definitely one of those that like drew a lot from the Psalms and that kind of thing. So that's always been a big inspiration for me, lyric wise, for sure.
Yeah. Cause I was, so my first introduction to you was the 24, beat tape.
Oh, nice.
My pastor showed it to me. He's like, John, you gotta listen to this. Like, it's so good. And then, our worship leader got hooked on it. And so we were just all listening to it. And I took this from your website, cause it's like, it says 24, is a beat tape, containing 24 tracks based on 24 hours in a day. It's a reflection on the unique moments and hours of each day, learning to be present and recognize God's presence in every moment. And I think that's like super, like, I want to say unique, but also like awesome. Like, because when you were creating 24, was there like, okay, this track, I want it to sound like this time in the day, and then okay.
Yeah,
So like, talk
definitely.
to me a little. I could ask a lot of questions about this, but talk to me
Yeah.
a little bit about it, and we'll see.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've just loved to do over the years is like learning to appreciate beauty in like creation and in what's around us. And I feel like even my understanding of what like consists as like art and things that glorify God has like really expanded over time. And yeah, some of the places and times that I've been that I've most like felt close to God and in relationship with him have been like out in nature, or like
Yeah.
going on a walk and just seeing like creation around us. And I think that process of making 24, like the main thing I was learning was like to keep my eyes open to what was going on around. And like there's the whole verse about like pray without ceasing, and I always like never really understood how to do that. I was like, how can I physically pray without ever stopping? But
Yeah.
I think it was learning to like be in that rhythm of like, okay, yes, there are set times where I'll like go away and pray, actively, and you have those like sung worship times and those moments. But then there's also like God's present when I'm working, and He's present when I'm traveling and going about my day. And like one of the psalms that really jumped out to me is Psalm 19, I think it is, and it talks about the heavens declare the glory of God, and like the sky proclaims His handiwork. And it's like even just the sky. Like I sit under a skylight here in my little loft room, and when I was making 24, I spent a lot of time just literally looking out the window at those times of day and thinking like, okay, every time I look up here, there's like a completely different scene and like piece of artwork that God's been painting in the sky, and like that is proclaiming the glory of God, as like Psalm 19 says. And even just light and colors in the sky and all that stuff is like actually speaking of who God is and His beauty. And so I really enjoyed just like diving into that and thinking, okay, what does 9 a.m. sound like, and what does the middle of the night sound like? And
Was that a difficult process? Was that like, I really need to buckle down and
it was a challenge, but I wouldn't say it was difficult in that sense, because it was so enjoyable as well. Like
for sure.
I find that even when I'm driving around or anything, like I listen to different types of music at different times of day. And I guess that was the challenge, was like trying to make all of these pieces and fit them together in a way that felt like it would flow. And sometimes I would make a beat and just listen to it and be like, what time of day is this? What does this feel like, and where do I fit this in the project? And the track list was very much like shifting around the whole way through. And I'd have like 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. written, and then I'd have another one and feel like, oh, this one feels more like 11 though, so can that one be 12? And
was there a lot that didn't make the track list too?
I had about maybe like 10 more that I didn't put on. And I find that with most projects that I tend to write more than needed and pick my favorite ones.
It's also like a lot of the tracks include like lyrics from the Psalms and from Scripture. How did you like say, okay, I want this verse in this hour and in this time? And
it was kind of just, I don't know what informed necessarily the process. I was definitely trying to keep it mostly instrumental. I think about 9 of the tracks have lyrics, and the other however many that is, 13 don't. And I was kind of, I think I drew a lot from Ecclesiastes actually in this project. And I think it's the song 10 a.m. more is like very much Ecclesiastes lyrics of like just realizing that a lot of things are very temporary, and like don't want to waste my time on things that aren't eternal and don't last. And then of course Psalm 19 that I mentioned, like that was a big inspiration. The song Listen, I think, is mostly written from Psalm 19. And then a lot of the other lyrics kind of, I'd say, pull from those two areas mostly. There's like Ecclesiastes references and things from Psalm 19, and a couple of other verses that I felt would fit in that. But and even the titles, like I would try and pull for the instrumental songs. They'd be like titles that come from those psalms or lyrics from other songs and that kind of stuff. So I think it was just, I spent a lot of time in the Psalms anyway. It's probably my favorite book. Sometimes it would just be, that was the psalm I was reading at the time I was making that song, and it just felt like it would fit in the project. So
it's awesome. And then as I kind of touched on earlier, 2020 and 21 has been really crazy. And what has like the Lord been teaching you? What has the Lord been teaching you in this extended period of just craziness and I guess difference of what we're used to?
It's been, I felt like it was kind of an invitation right at the start to like that place of intimacy. And I was like honestly quite tired, I think, when it came around to like March time. And we've been just running very fast, especially with the band. And we were even like on tour at that point. We were in, I think it was the West Coast in February, and then we went to Brazil in March. And normally I find the whole touring process quite like intense anyway, and I usually kind of come home and crash for a few weeks, but we like came home straight into like lockdown in the UK. And it was kind of surreal. I think the first few weeks I was still kind of just tired anyway, and then suddenly you realize like, wait, this isn't just staying at home by choice anymore. Like we actually have to do this for a long
Right.
time, and the kind of reality sets in of not being able to see my family as much and all of that kind of stuff. And it was definitely a challenge, just like mentally and all of that. But at the same time, I kind of saw the opportunity of like, when else am I going to have this much space to like be at home? And
Right.
we had a lot of other stuff planned for March through to the summer, which all had to get cancelled, all the live stuff. And I was like, wow, this is probably the most space I've ever had in my calendar without
Oh yeah.
things on. And I was just aware that I didn't want to like waste that moment. And so I really I felt like it was a time to kind of dig deep wells for like whatever the next thing will be. And for me, that was just in spending time with Jesus and, in prayer, reading the Bible, just really simple stuff. But I've just been like spending a lot of my time in the room, just like blasting worship music and
Yeah.
spending time with God there, and like reading a lot as well. I've been doing a lot more reading than usual, but it's been good. It felt like in some ways it's been a reset for like the place that I originally started doing everything I did. Like when I was that 17, 18-year-old first making songs, like it was out of just being in my room, listening to worship music and spending time with Jesus. And it's kind of crazy that you can actually get so busy doing ministry that
Oh yeah.
the reason you do it gets pushed out sometimes,
Oh sure. Sure.
And so it was kind of a good reset where like, okay, there is no like big public on stage ministry for a while now. So like, it's just me and Jesus again. And like, I actually felt like it was a really good reset for that. But
Yeah.
at this point, like, it's still going. Definitely, lockdown's going a lot longer than I expected it to. But
So you guys are still locked down right now?
yeah, it's pretty bad in the UK. So
Man.
and Manchester as well, where I am, has been like one of the. I think I saw something on Twitter that it's been like 300 and something out of the last 365 days we've been in
Man.
lockdown in Manchester. So like,
It's crazy.
pretty crazy. But
So what is it? I guess right now you don't really know, but I guess looking forward, are you planning anything? What is 2021? I guess as far as you can see, what does it look like?
yeah, I think I'm kind of making a lot of plans with question marks next to them, and
Right,
like
right.
that will roll depending on where we get to in the calendar. But I ended up making this EP, Songs from Home.
Yeah.
So that's going to be coming out in April. And I was kind of debating whether to even do something like that because I wanted to see it as more of a secret place kind of time, and I was like, do I want to release songs from that kind of thing? But
Oh, for sure.
it felt right. I felt like after a while, like God was leading me into putting that project out. So that's been a really like personal project, and the songs are just very a lot of like deep stuff I've been journeying with God, and like I think it's will hopefully bless other people in their rooms or wherever they are in the world right now. But after that, I'm planning on. I have some ideas for like an album that I'll probably start writing.
Sweet.
And then, I have a couple of trips I really want to do, but it's just question marks next to them. Like,
Oh, for sure.
when we'll actually be able to travel. So,
Like around the UK, are you coming to the States or?
I do want to come back to the States. When we did this West Coast tour, particularly around like California area, felt like we had like a day in each city, and
Nice.
met so many people that I really wanted to like just go back and spend more time with and work on some stuff with, but we just didn't have time to do it. So
Oh yeah.
as soon as things open up, I want to just come back and like probably do some songwriting and producing stuff and
Dude,
make
that'd
some
be
videos
sweet.
and that kind of thing.
And
yeah.
you did announce 2 tracks, and you released 2 tracks, Miles and Miles, and then All Right, and
Yeah.
then the 5-track EP, right? 5 is
Yeah.
dropping April 2nd.
April 2nd. Yes.
April 2nd. Nice.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that. I know you just touched on it a little bit of just being at home, and
Yeah.
you said you didn't really feel like you were sure that you wanting to release something, but what kind of
it
shifted
was.
that?
I think I tend to overthink a lot of things. So, I was just like trying to figure out if it was even a good time to put music out and all that stuff. But, I think you may have seen the YouTube video you mentioned a while back. Like, I got sent this guitar by somebody just on Twitter that I'd never met before. That like reached out and was like, "Hey, I've got an instrument I want to send you," and it was like the exact type of guitar I've been thinking about if I was going to make an acoustic project. And
That's so crazy,
just-
man.
yeah, it's one of those crazy God moments where I was like, okay, Lord, I think I get what you said.
He's like, you're gonna make this. You're gonna do.
Yeah. But yeah, I kind of saw it as an exercise in restraint, at least production wise. Like
Right.
24 was very production heavy. It was very like lots of layers and electronic stuff. And this one, I wanted it to sound like me in my room with a guitar for most of it. There are some like extra layers and that kind of stuff, but a lot of it is like, even vocally, I usually layer up my vocals quite a lot and have like 2 or 3 stacks and like pan them around, do all that stuff. But yeah, a bunch of this one is like just one vocal take on its own and like no reverb and all that stuff that I normally put on. So,
Right.
yeah, it feels very like raw when I listen to it. I'm just like, oh, this is so exposed.
Do you like it? Are you like, man, this is good? Or are you?
I
Like,
do. It took me a while to get used to hearing like just my voice sounding that way and the production
yeah.
and stuff. But yeah,
Awesome, man.
I'm happy.
And then I asked this. I've asked this the last 2 episodes too. How do you think the gospel impacts the creative mind? It impacts everything that we do as believers. But in terms of creating music and writing and all that, how would you say the gospel kind of inspires and pushes us?
That's a great question. I think I have so many things I want to say. I'm trying to decide which.
Go ahead.
I think realizing that the whole like creativity as its own thing is like a gift from God. I really think that when we create things, it's not like we're creating something out of nothing. We're kind of taking the things that God already created and like reshaping and reworking them into new things. And even with like music and design and all that stuff, we're just taking like sound and melody and all of these things that God designed and built for us and kind of taking those raw materials and trying to create something from it. And I see creativity as actually like one of the most beautiful ways to present the gospel. And I think there is absolutely, preaching and all different ways that we can do that. But I'm probably biased as a creative person, but I think
for sure.
there's something about like beauty that points to the nature of who God is. And like I mentioned in creation as well. And like God himself as the creator is beautiful and like the most beautiful person we'll ever meet or like spend time with. And I think there's something in beauty, whether it's in art or music or design or just the creation we see around us, that like calls to this deep thing within us that's like made to experience that and like experience the beauty of who Jesus is. And it's like I remember I was actually reading this book called Culture Care by Makoto Fujimura. He's like a Japanese painter that's become a Christian as well.
Nice.
And he's telling this story about his like this time when him and his wife were just really poor and like weren't able to afford food all the time and all this stuff. And one day his wife comes back with this bouquet of flowers and he's like, why have you bought flowers at this time? Like, when can't even get food and all this stuff. And she said, the soul needs food as well. And there's something about like the beauty of things around us that actually like feeds our soul. Because it points to like who God is and his nature and like the beauty that we're actually made to see and appreciate. And so I think that's kind of the role that creativity can play, is like if we're just purely looking at the kind of functional needs and all that kind of stuff, like we're missing like the beauty and extravagance of who God is. And like art has a way of like feeding our soul in that way that connects us to who Jesus is. And so like I find that that's opened up more over time. Like I used to think that a song can only be worship if like it has Jesus in the words and like it has to be all this stuff. And now I'm finding that like I meet with God in the process of like writing a chord progression and like putting a melody together, and just seeing like the beauty of that helps me see like the beauty of God as a creator and just who he is as well. So I find I'm finding Jesus in a lot more places than I thought possible.
I think that's huge. I think I'd echo that. I think I was the same way. I was like, man, I can only write worship music, and that's the only thing that like is gonna preach the gospel. But it's like in everything we do, like that can be worship if our heart is set on the right thing.
Yeah.
That's so good, man. And then okay, so kind of switching gears majorly, I gotta ask, and are you a big coffee drinker? Like, are you, or is that not your thing?
I'm a tea guy.
You're a
I keep
tea guy?
trying to like coffee, but it doesn't work for me.
Do they have like tea spots around the UK and stuff like that?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Well-
I feel like it's a very British thing anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I'm drinking tea all day, but I've like tried to do the coffee thing. All my friends have like taken me to all the like hipster spots and like done the V60s and all these fancy ones. And they're always like, you
Yeah.
have to try this. If you don't like this, you don't like coffee. And I'm like, I don't think I
It's
don't
not
like
great.
coffee.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's okay. But where would you say
Disgrace.
where would you say is like a good place to get tea around the UK or even in the States? Do they have those around the States? I don't know.
I don't know. I normally go to like the coffee shops and order tea. I'm
Yeah.
like that guy that just gets tea from coffee shops.
they're like, what the heck is this guy doing?
Yeah, I feel like I'm supposed to like coffee, but I don't know.
Yeah, I
I'll
feel
keep
like
trying.
it fits the personality and the whole
Yeah,
it's the whole worship leader vibe thing, man. If you
True.
don't like coffee.
yeah.
But all right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. And before we go, is there what are you up to? What are you doing? And where can people find you? And
Yeah,
the mic is yours.
Thanks, man. Yeah, just all my stuff is available through my website. It's probably the easiest way to find it. So it's jonathanogden.co.uk. So yeah, just making music and everything through there. And if you want to check out the ministry, it's called Set Sail. We are actually like reworking it right now.
Oh, nice.
We're setting up a system to do more like teaching and workshop type stuff, which
Oh, sweet.
may potentially change name.
Oh,
So,
really?
Depending if you, at what point we're at on this podcast out, the website may be different. But I guess if you go on my website, you'll find it anyway. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Sweet, man. Well, again, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. And,
Yeah, thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, dude. We'll see you guys on the next episode of InHaus Podcast. Thanks for watching.